We're in Henford upon Bagley today. Henford is still mounting Bagley. Someone please dismount him. It's been too long. It's getting weird. But today we're going to turn this nuclear fallout green lot into something that is a lot more countryside, rustic, organic, Tudor style manner, which is definitely very normal for now. Because this will actually be built over a few videos as we develop some secretive lore around this house that will have it ending a little bit more unhinged and conspiring than it first appears. A couple of you asked in the comments for a house with secrets, and I'm here to excessively deliver. But for now, we're going to place the upcoming lore to one side and focus on the exterior. Here's my mannequin for scale. And we're going to start with the shell. And while I'm building the shell, I realized that my timekeeping has not been the best currently, right now. And I'm ended up just sort of like building and uploading when I feel like it. I have some holiday things coming up, and I'm trying to plan ahead to have things to upload during those times that I'm not going to be as available. But this week, I was trying to build, and I had some migraines. I'm still having migraines. And during one particular delirious migraine episode, I just decided I was going to write a full-length song. So instead of building, I'm just like off doing other random things. Apparently my brain's decided I'm a songwriter now, so Lord knows what I'm going to do with that. Maybe I'll upload something for a sub goal with me doing some tragic singing. Who knows? But in typical chaos, I didn't actually plan that this would be the next build. I was inspired by you guys in the comments last video. What I was planning on doing was a tiny home. So this is a bit of a turnaround. But I thought, you know what, I'm going to do some tiny homes to chill a bit, calm down from these overly complex builds that I've been doing. But as you can see, that plan went in the toilet. So we're here now constructing this monstrous Goliath of a house. But the vibe here, I have some ideas for where the lore and story is going to go. I thought I'd do a build with some story involved. We're going to add some Sims a bit later. Not in this video, but in one coming up. I've split this up. It was too long. I've done a whole exterior here. I don't know how my PC handled it. It was too much, but it somehow has handled it. So I'm going to keep going and do the interior, even if I end up having to delete the outside in order to finish it. I'm going to do it. The vibe is something, I wanted something very historic so that I could add a lot of history, maybe some background to this house, which we'll go into a little later in the series. However many, I think there's going to be three. I think there's going to be three videos covering this because I have plans. But I really liked the idea of this old Tudor style sort of house and do something a bit different to what I normally do. I'm obviously typically doing quite modern builds, but surprisingly, even though I sort of choose that style, I am very into these very old, specifically Tudor, with all the like wooden panels and things on the walls. So I found some reference images, a few of them, a selection. So this is my own sort of unique build, but I found some reference images for detail and just for some style references. That's all it was. And going around, figuring out how I want this build to be, how big do I want it? Because I wanted something quite big, but not too big, to the point where my PC is going to cry as soon as I get in there and start placing hundreds of custom content wall pieces that no one asked for on all of these walls. But yeah, I actually love this style. And when I used to play The Sims 1, I mean, it's still a blank canvas right now. I'm just like bending all of the roofs. But we're going to go with that Tudor, all those Tudor wall swatches that we're going to end up with. I used to solely use those in The Sims 1. Like, regardless of what the build was like on the inside, the outside, I would always use these Tudor swatches for a whole mismatch. I wasn't very good in The Sims 1. I was like 8 years old, so don't... But yeah, I've always enjoyed this sort of style, and I thought, you know what, we're going to do it. We're going to do it in The Sims 4 finally, and see how detailed we can get. And I went very detailed, but I'm working on the roofs and I'm starting the roofs, and we're not going to do all of the roofs because I'm already being very pernickety, and I was trying to like create roofing which required me to use multiple pieces on one section of roof to sort of blend in a way that they weren't overlapping too much and clashing. So this bit that I'm currently doing now, where I'm going around, I don't think that stays. Actually, I know that doesn't stay, so just ignore that, really. Don't even look at it. No. But I wanted to show my process of, I thought, you know what, I'm going to leave this one bit in that I do end up changing a bit, just to show that I don't always know exactly what I'm doing in a build. And I do change things. So this bit here that we're sort of laying out, it will change a bit. I wanted to show that kind of process because for the rest of it, I do kind of do a bit of skipping ahead. And I'm going to show you sort of the tips and tricks and the process of building this exterior, but I'm not going to show you me actually building the entire thing because this is a 60 by 60 lot. So I'm going to show you individual sections, and then for the bits I don't show you, I'm just sort of doing the things that I've already shown you. I'm just repeating it and probably watching something on YouTube at the same time. So I'm adding some very curved roofs, and I always forget what the keybind is. There is a keybind, and I've forgotten what it is again, but there is a keybind that lets you have more nodes to affect a curved roof. I think it might be Control C, or it's Shift C, maybe, I don't know. But you can, look, see, that one has like three little balls on it. So if you want to know what that is, I can't help you because I've forgotten. But you can look it up online for a hotkey that lets you edit the roofs a little more than the game actually lets you. I don't know why the game does not have a list of like hotkeys and things in it, or why you can't change the keys. That really bothers me. But I wanted this roof to be quite tall. We're going to have a whole attic area that's going to be very, very secretive and mysterious when we get inside, but we're not there yet, so shh, it's a secret. And a very, very curved. I'm going to have lots of curves when we get around to actually building the sort of landscape around this house. And here I've sort of, yeah, here we go. So I've cut because I got to that side and I got confused with what I wanted for the roofs to be like. So I've just gone ahead and I finished the roofs. You saw me do most of them anyway. And obviously colored it in this orangey color, which was similar to one of the reference images that I had that I quite liked. The orange, and I've already pre-selected all of the windows because there was a lot of options and I needed to sort of have a plan with this build and not go around and play window selection simulator. So we're just going to go around and place all of those where they're going to be, and the style of them, I've sort of deliberately done it so that there's windows, each floor almost has a different window palette, and it does look a little bit funky when it's just this white bare shell and just the windows on it. But trust me, they will blend in once we've gone in with the actual wall swatches and all the details we're going to add to connect these things. So we've got a whole range. We've got these tiny windows, a couple of rounded ones. Some of them are CC. I think there's a selection of CC ones. And then these tall square ones. And the plan for this is that the lower floor is actually going to be more stone orientated. And then the floors above that are going to be built in more of like the wood materials. So as we've finished up the windows, we'll go around and you'll see that I'm going to add some wallpaper. So here we go. This is the wallpaper. We've got that stone swatch on the bottom, and then a combination of a sort of white wall and those very Tudor style sort of paneled pieces with paint showing through. There's a lot of them, so I just sort of did it. And then we're going to come in with these different wall items. I got out a palette of wall items. So we have the sort of stone ones first that are going to be more on this lower wall, but slightly blending it up so there's not a clear sort of horizontal line between the stone area and the wooden area. So that's kind of what I'm trying to do here with these various different items. I found this arch and it doesn't stay because I didn't like the color of the sort of foliage on it. I wish there was an option without it and I probably would have kept it, but I do end up doing something a little bit different there instead to blend it in. But then I also have a sort of swatch of wooden objects, a palette of wooden objects. I'm going to go in and use those to sort of fill up and detail the upper floors. And just make these pre-existing wallpaper pieces just look a little bit more custom, and blend everything in more with these pieces. Got some wooden pillars too, and my idea here was that these two sort of porch areas, I guess, at the two sides were more wooden, but I end up making the entire bottom floor stone in the end, so ignore those wooden poles. They're going to be moved. What else are we doing? Oh yeah, and then using these, what do you call this ledge, the sort of pre-built ledges, mixing some of those in as well. And I'm just making a combination here really of all these different items and Here I'm showing you what I'm doing with each of them and where they're sort of going, and I will fast forward and do the entire thing because you do not want to watch me place rows and rows around the entire perimeter of this build. It would just take too long. But you can kind of see what I'm going for here. Stone, blending it in. Second floor, sort of like a mix of stone and wood, and then the top floors go all the way up, solely with this sort of dark wood color. I'm making this small like entranceway. There's two entranceways. There's like the small hut-looking part at the side, and then there's this front door area. So I consider that this was more like a front door, and maybe the other side would be, for example, if this build had servants at some point or something, those would be more like the servants' entry, whereas this one at the front would be, you know, the owner of the estate would come through this door, and we'd have probably some servant quarters inside, separate areas for them. We're not actually going to do that when we move inside, because the idea is this is a build that is old, but it's sort of like set more in a modern time, but we'll have more of that when we actually get to discussing the lore a bit. And then the last thing I'm going to do is just add some of these roof, well, I don't know what these are called either. As usual, I'm struggling with nouns. But yeah, I've now gone around and I've filled the whole thing in. So we've got loads of rows, but I thought my PC would die at this point, and it hadn't yet. So I was like, okay, well, I guess I'll keep going. Clearly these wall pieces weren't as hard on the processing little robot that lives inside my PC as I thought they might be. But next we're going to go on and do a little bit of foliage outside, because this is very old. It's going to have ivy all over it, and I love using these ivy pieces. So I got a few out, and I'm just showing you sort of like the general idea of how I'm using them. But I do end up using some more, so we'll see that once I've placed these ones, that I go around and I add a few more pieces. And the ones I'm going to add here, the ones I've used at the front, are actually the Felix ones from his estate CC pack, and they're these ones here. And there's a nice collection of them, but I wanted to show you me actually placing these, because I have a little tip for if you want to place ivy somewhere, and you'll see I'm placing them in it looks completely random until I explain the logic. And the logic here is I'm actually placing all of this ivy over the areas where the wall is hit by the direct sunlight. And the reason for that is because plants, you know, typically grow where the light is stronger. So you can see it specifically on the areas where there's white. There's some real strong highlights there, and I'm just placing the ivy in a way that obviously looks like it's naturally grown up there. So it's obviously thinner at the top and more thick at the bottom, but I'm really just following the existing lighting and shadow on the build, and then you can kind of brainlessly do it a little bit, and it ends up looking quite natural at the end. So if you sometimes try and do foliage and it ends up looking a bit crazy, that's a good tip. So I've done that. I've gone around the entire build, placing all of those. This is pretty much the same items just all over the whole thing. I didn't do too much at the back because that's going to be quite hidden by the end of it. I'd sort of realized at this point that I'm going to probably have trees back there, so I didn't want to overdo it. And we're just going to place these nice stone swatch, which really ties the build into the ground once I've placed that, I think, and match it in with these wall edge kind of stone bits as well. Just replace the stairs because they were a bit bright white, and then we're gonna go down here. This is where the basement's gonna be. This is where the basement entrance is gonna be. Some secret basement shenanigans will be going on. And I'm adding a wall here, which is a live edit one. And then I wanted to conceal this a bit. I wanted to extend the build a little bit because it was looking like, you know, the size of this build, they're gonna have some kind of like outhouse looking, you know, extensions of the architecture. They're not just going to have this one house and then that's it. So I've done this entrance which goes to the basement, which is kind of outside but also inside at the same time. And then this courtyard area, which I thought I would add as well, which I guess would just be for like sitting outside and chilling. And then next to that, we're going to have a sort of vineyard and orchard when I get around to that. So I just wanted to sort of extend the house and make it look like there's things going on around the house and not just do a complete nature style build around it, sort of like more of a functional thing. These archways I think are from another Felix pack, adding in these walls. There was a little bit of adjusting going on here as I sort of felt out how I wanted it to look at the end, and I had a shape in mind but I wasn't quite sure what it was, so there's a little bit of playing around going on here. Also, very much opening it up with these archways, which I saw these archways and things were a very prominent feature in the reference images and that I came up for, especially when they're in these old style, almost fantasy looking villages of Tudor architecture where the houses are quite connected, and then there's little like alleyways and tunnels and things, and they all have these archways. So I wanted to get quite a few of them here in this side of the build, which was another reason why I wanted this to kind of specifically be a courtyard and not just under the building, to really get that feature in there. And I'm going to seal that off with a wall so that the steps down are inside, outside, sort of both. The game thinks they're inside. I think they're outside. I think the light should go through there more than it is doing, but there we go. It's not doing that. And then just going to build up the decking area a little bit around here. And I've used a foundation because I'm going to do some terrain stuff after, and I wanted to be able to mold the terrain around the house and not have it with a sheer edge. So I've specifically pre-planned that and actually used a foundation in this build. So here we go, and what I've basically done here is used the various terrain paints as a paintbrush. Oh, this is almost like a sketch. I've sort of sketched out, obviously I've made a lake too, which was a bit more than just painting, but made this lake and then sketched out where I want different sections of this landscape area to be around the house. And I'm going to just stop motion through this because this was a lot of just repetitive placement of live edit objects. A lot of live edit wall usage, lots of different ones, because I wanted to create all sorts of different textures and things, as if to imply, if this has a lot of history, you know, that things will have been built over different time periods, different materials will have been used. So it was really important for me to use lots of different walls to really create the illusion of a lot of history around this build. Over here you can see I've sort of laid out where I'm going to have the orchard area. And we're going to go in and put some hedges, and here we're going to have a dry stone wall. And I did that because obviously I wanted a variation of walls and it was very British looking anyway, but there's also a lot of dry stone wall in the world around it, so I wanted to blend the lot in by using some of that to make sure it didn't look like too much of a sore thumb. And here we're going to have a little like paddock area, and I'll be honest, I haven't played with the cows or anything in this game a single time because I barely play live mode, so I don't know if it will actually function at the end. I do put a pen in it. But I'm sure that could easily be adjusted if needed. And we're just going to put a few little items in for some detail. I thought I'd put some like fire logs here, a little hay bale. We're going to have some topiary, but not too much because I didn't want it to be a sort of a too fancy of a build. I wanted it to look quite organic and natural and a little bit overgrown and fantasy-like, a little bit whimsical. So just a couple of them. And then this statue of a goat, which I'll be honest, I don't really know why I put this in there, but I liked it. And then a knocked over lamppost, a little bit of lore might surround that. We're going to come in here with a fountain area. And then I'm going to go through, and I got these trees out of debug. I wanted apple trees. I couldn't place the apple ones, so they're actually cherry ones, and we're just pretending they're apple ones by putting apples on the floor next to it. So, you know, playing on this lot, that will probably grow cherries, but whatever. It's a fruit. It's a fruit tree. That still counts as an orchard, right? Placing all of these apples on the floor, and it's all starting to come along a bit now, but we need to add foliage. So that's the next step, and I've made some foliage palettes. I've got the sort of flower palette. I've got what I'm calling the like mass producing palette of green, and then one for the ponds as well. So I'm just gonna go through and show you some examples of how and where I place each of these sort of different textures of plant I've picked out for this palette of overall vegetation. And then I'll do another little stop motion speed through thing so you can see how I've decorated it all, because this build would have been so long if I'd literally just recorded doing all of it, and I didn't want to do multiple videos of just an exterior. So we're just gonna do that. But I'm making lots of whites, some white bushes, some white flowers, and when I build this up, I kind of place the greens first. I sort of make the shape of it with the mass creating ones, as I said, and then add some color pops, add a bit of a color palette with the flowers. Same with the pond, I'm sort of building up the masses of foliage with these different grasses. And then once I've done that, I go through and sort of extend them a bit with these smaller grasses. And it's about making a natural looking sort of natural looking clumps that don't make it look too overgrown, but also make it look like there's very natural growth of plants going on here. I wanted it to look quite natural, more like they've There's a gardener or something that keeps up with the flower beds closer to the house, but the rest of it is sort of just like only mildly tended for, so it doesn't get overgrown. But it's like there's probably some weeds, there's probably some overgrown thistles and thorns and various things. Adding lots of ivy too to sort of cover up the grass, because it is that really horrible nuclear fallout green. Why is it this green? It's just too much. I don't know any grass that looks like green. And again, going on the riverbanks, I'll add a few more. I'll add some rocks as well to sort of blend it in even more. But this is all just, it's already just like repeating the same item over and over again. So you didn't want to watch me do this for the whole build. you have an idea of how I'm using them, and I've explained a bit and what my thinking is when I'm going through and doing this. So I think it's fine. You'll see what I've done when we go through the little stop motion. I'm going to finish off with a few more plants, going in with those really small little details for some flecks of colour in these flower beds. And then some lavender. I thought that was quite British. Bit of lavender at the end. So here we go. This is the pond little stop motion. Well, the first side. So I've gone through and it's just laying out all of these grasses. I placed the rocks as well to blend it in a bit more. And then I've also put some small grasses around. I've been around a lot at this point and shoved a few things off the lot, like some large trees and that building you can see in the background. They're all live at it, and I just shoved them off the lot to sort of blend the lot in a little bit more, because I like to extend it so it feels like it sits within the world rather than just being like a square that doesn't belong in the world. So I've overlapped them a bit using the tool mod and just building up these bushes so it looks very overgrown but also not too wild. And I will probably put some ducks or something on this when we get to it, but because I've not got live mode here, it would just have a duck symbol sat there in the middle of the lake, and I thought that looked a bit stupid, so we're not going to add duck yet. We will at the end. Same here on this side. I've moved the sort of heron topiary because I thought it looked better next to the water rather than the flower bed. And again, just made it look like rock island and things, trying to make it all look very natural. And then in this area around the orchard, I've made it more flowery, look a bit more like it's tended to. With some more pops of colour because it's closer to the house. So I've made this one look a little bit less wild. And then I'm going to go in with these little fences, and this one's a really small one, which is a Love Struck live edit one, but I thought this really fit the sort of kind of very jank looking fencing that they have around. Why do they do this? When people have like crops and things, there's like these tiny little fences around it, but what's it for? Who does that keep out? I don't get it. And then we have this little one as well, which I thought looks a little bit smarter, so we're going to border the flower beds with that one. But it's almost actually the same fence, it just has a stone piece underneath it when I think about it. But yes, I'm going to go around, finish that off, and there are some extra things and details that I did in this build off camera, but I don't think any of them were too important that it's going to affect the end result if you've not specifically seen me build them. So we're going to go around after that, and we're going to look at the finished landscape and exterior of this build. So we're going to go through and have a look at this build as it's finished. The outside, the exterior. I will probably, very most likely, because I know what I'm like, I will likely add some more things to the outside of this upon an evening where I'm bored and just are finding things to be perfectionist about. But for now, I think it's looking, you know, very, very nice enough for us to go inside next time and start working on the interior and exploring the lore a little bit of what's going on with this house. The mannequin there is very happy. He's very fancy. He's never had such a luxurious build. This lake is really nice. Pond, lake, whatever. It's one of those, it's like borderline, isn't it? It's like, is that a pond or is it a lake? Fountain, here's the other side. It looks so nice when it's all like overgrown and lush. I love working with plants. I wish more people actually enjoyed watching me place plants. A lot of people don't, because if they did, I would do so many plant builds. I would just do foliage. But, you know, that's just me. I'm just weird. I'm a bit too into plants. Here's the heron. He's looking out over the pond. Maybe we'll add some fish for him to not eat because he's not real. He's a hedge. And finishing off here, little orchard. I think I could probably add a few more grasses and things to this. I might do it at some point. But that's the first part done. Next time we'll move on to the interior. Thank you so much for watching. be kind to yourselves, and I will see you in the next one.